Captain Kim Soo rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the glowing screens around him. The Mars Defense Station was quiet tonight, just like every other night for the past 3 years. He picked up his coffee cup and took a sip of the cold, bitter liquid. Outside the thick windows, the red planet Mars stretched endlessly under the pale light of distant Earth. Another boring patrol report, he muttered to himself, scrolling through the data on his tablet. The outer colonies were peaceful. No pirates, no raiders, no problems at all. Sometimes Kim Soo wondered if they really needed all these defense stations scattered across human space. Lieutenant Park Hai sat at her desk nearby, typing something into her computer. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and bright eyes that still held excitement about serving in space. Kim Soo remembered feeling that way once, back when humanity first reached the stars. Suddenly the air above Kim Soo's desk began to shimmer and glow. He dropped his coffee cup, watching in amazement as golden light swirled and formed into a perfect circle. Ancient symbols appeared in the light, symbols he had only seen in old textbooks from the academy. "What in the world?" Kim Soo whispered. Park Hai jumped up from her chair, her eyes wide with shock. "Sir, that's impossible." The symbols grew brighter and began to spin slowly. Kim Soo recognized them now from his studies of galactic history. It was the seal of the Galactic Council, the ancient government that ruled over most of the galaxy. But humans had never been part of the council. They barely knew it still existed. "Sir," Park Hai said, her voice shaking with excitement, "I'm scanning the hologram. The quantum signature is authentic. This is really from the council." Kim Soo stood up slowly, his heart beating fast. In all his 40 years of life, 30 of them spent in the military, he had never imagined seeing something like this. The Galactic Council was made up of 12 species so old that they had been traveling between stars when humans still lived in caves on Earth. The hologram began to speak in a voice that sounded like music and thunder at the same time. Automatically, the station's computers translated the words into simple human language. "Greetings, representatives of the species known as humans. The Galactic Council requests your immediate presence at an emergency session on Nexus Prime. Your delegation must arrive within one standard galactic week." The message repeated 3 times, then the hologram faded away, leaving Kim Soo and Park Hai staring at empty air. "Did that really just happen?" Park Hai asked in a whisper. Before Kim Soo could answer, the door to the command center slid open with a soft hiss. Commander Lee Jun walked in, his usually calm face showing signs of worry. Lee Jun was the smartest person Kim Soo knew, a military strategist who had helped plan the defense of the outer colonies during the last pirate uprising. "Kim Soo," Lee Jun said quickly, "we just received some very strange reports from our deep space listening posts. Are you getting anything unusual here?" "You could say that," Kim Soo replied, pointing to where the hologram had appeared. "We just received a message from the Galactic Council." Lee Jun stopped walking and stared at him. "That's not possible. The Council hasn't talked to humans in over 1,000 years. Most people think they're just a legend." Park Hai pulled up the recording on her computer. "Look at this, sir. The message is real." All 3 of them watched as the hologram played again. Lee Jun's face grew more serious with each word. "This is bigger than we thought," Lee Jun said after the message ended. "I've been getting reports from our intelligence network. Something is happening out there in deep space. Ships are disappearing. Entire fleets from the old species are going silent." Kim Soo felt a chill run down his spine. "What kind of ships?" "The big ones," Lee Jun replied. "Warships that could destroy our entire defense force without breaking a sweat. And they're just vanishing without sending any distress calls." Park Hai looked back and forth between the 2 older men. "But why would the council call us? We're just humans. We've only been in space for 50,000 years. That's like yesterday to species that are millions of years old." Lee Jun walked over to the big star map on the wall. Red dots showed human colonies, scattered across a small section of the galaxy. Blue dots marked the territories of the 12 ancient species that made up the council. The blue areas covered most of the known galaxy. "Maybe that's exactly why they're calling us," Lee Jun said thoughtfully. "We're young. We think differently. While they've been following the same patterns for hundreds of thousands of years, we're still learning, still changing." Kim Soo looked at the star map and tried to imagine what kind of enemy could threaten species that had ruled the galaxy since before Earth's sun was born. "What do we know about this Nexus Prime place?" "It's the Council's neutral meeting world," Lee Jun explained. "No weapons allowed. No military ships. It's supposed to be the most peaceful place in the galaxy. And now they're having an emergency meeting there," Park Hai added. "It must be something really serious." Kim Soo nodded slowly. In a few hours he would need to choose a team to represent all of humanity at a gathering of the galaxy's most ancient and powerful species. The thought was both terrifying and exciting. Outside the windows, Mars continued its slow rotation, unaware that everything was about to change. Admiral Kim Soo stepped off the human transport ship and looked up at the most amazing building he had ever seen. The council chambers on Nexus Prime rose into the sky like a mountain made of silver and light. The structure was so tall that clouds formed around its middle sections, and so wide that he could not see where it ended on either side. "I never imagined anything could be this big," whispered Captain Yumin, walking beside him. She was Earth's best expert on alien life forms, but even she seemed overwhelmed by what they were seeing. Specialist Han Na carried a heavy pack full of translation equipment on her back. "The computers are already picking up dozens of different alien languages," she said, adjusting her headphones. "Some of these species communicate through colors, others through chemical smells, and a few through pure thought." As they walked toward the massive entrance, Kim Soo saw creatures that looked like living dreams and nightmares. A group of tall, thin beings with blue skin and large black eyes glided past them without making a sound. Their thoughts seemed to whisper directly into his mind, though he could not understand the words. "Those are the Keth," Yumin explained quietly. "They've been telepathic for over 1,000,000 years. They can read minds and speak without using their mouths." Near a fountain made of floating water drops, a cluster of beings that looked like walking crystal formations discussed something in voices that sounded like wind chimes. Their bodies caught the light and threw rainbows across the ground. The Vorin, Han Na identified them through her translation equipment. They're basically living computers made of crystal. Each one of those beings has more processing power than our entire planetary network. But what caught Kim Soo's attention most were the floating clouds of colored gas that drifted overhead. Sometimes the gas would form into shapes that almost looked like faces or hands, then dissolve and reform into something else. "The Nethri," Yumin said with wonder in her voice. "They don't have solid bodies at all. They're pure energy and gas held together by magnetic fields." Inside the chambers, Kim Soo felt like an ant walking into a cathedral built for giants. The ceiling disappeared somewhere high above them, and the floor was made of some material that seemed to absorb sound, making everything feel strangely quiet despite the thousands of beings present. The 12 founding species each had their own section of the chamber. Kim Soo had studied them in school, but seeing them in person was completely different. These were beings so old that they had been traveling between stars when humans were still learning to make fire. But something was wrong. Instead of the calm, wise discussion Kim Soo had expected, the chamber was filled with angry voices, flashing lights, and clouds of agitated gas. The ancient species were arguing with each other like children fighting over toys. "Han Na, can you translate what they're saying?" Kim Soo asked. The specialist adjusted her equipment and listened for a moment. Her face grew pale. "Sir, they're talking about massive fleet losses. Entire armadas just disappearing without a trace. And they're blaming each other for it." One of the Keth elders, a being so old that its skin looked like ancient paper, sent its thoughts out to the entire chamber. Han Na translated the mental message. "It's saying that their traditional battle formations are completely useless against this new enemy. The invaders don't follow any of the established rules of warfare." Captain Yumin pulled out her tablet and began recording everything she could observe. "Admiral, look at how they're behaving. These species have been in charge of the galaxy for 200,000 years. They're used to everyone else following their rules and doing what they say." Kim Soo watched as a massive Vorin crystal being projected holographic images of space battles into the air above the chamber. The images showed enormous warships, each one the size of a city, being destroyed by smaller, darker vessels that moved in ways that seemed impossible. "Every engagement follows the same pattern," Yumin said, studying the battle recordings. "The enemy watches how these ancient species fight, learns their tactics during the first battle, then completely destroys them in the second battle." Han Na continued translating the heated discussions. "The Nethri are saying that the enemy adapts faster than the council can make decisions. By the time they finish debating what to do, the enemy has already figured out how to counter their plans." A group of beings that looked like metallic trees began flashing different colored lights at each other. Han Na's equipment struggled to translate their light-based language. "The Ferox are reporting that 3 of their colony worlds have gone completely silent. No distress calls, no evacuation signals. Just silence." Kim Soo realized that he was watching the collapse of an order that had existed since before humans learned to write. These ancient beings had become so comfortable with their power and their traditional ways of doing things that they could not adapt to face a new kind of threat. They're stuck in their old patterns, he said quietly to his team. For thousands of centuries they've solved every problem the same way. Send big fleets, use overwhelming force, follow the same battle strategies that worked against every other enemy they've ever faced. But this enemy is different, Yumin added. It learns and adapts. It turns their own strength and predictability against them. As Kim Soo watched the chaos around him, he began to understand why humanity had been called to this emergency meeting. The galaxy's oldest and most powerful species were failing, and they knew it. Kim Soo was still trying to understand the angry discussions in the council chamber when the lights suddenly went out. Emergency alarms began screaming throughout the massive building, and red warning lights flashed on and off like angry eyes in the darkness. What's happening? Captain Yu Min shouted over the noise. Before anyone could answer, the huge windows that surrounded the chamber began to show something terrifying. Dark shapes were appearing in the space around Nexus Prime. They looked like shadows given solid form, black ships that seemed to eat the light around them. The enemy? Han Na cried out, her translation equipment crackling with panicked alien voices. They found us. Kim Soo watched in horror as more and more dark ships materialized out of nothing. They moved in ways that hurt to look at, sliding through space like oil through water. Their hulls were so black that they seemed to be holes cut out of reality itself. The ancient species fleets responded immediately. Massive warships that had been orbiting Nexus Prime moved into perfect formations that had been used for thousands of years. The Keth ships formed elegant triangles, the Voron vessels created complex geometric patterns, and the Nethri energy beings arranged themselves in flowing circles. They're so beautiful, Yumin whispered, watching the alien fleets move with practiced precision. But Kim Soo felt a cold fear in his stomach. They're too predictable, he said. Just like in all the battle records we saw. The enemy will study these formations and figure out exactly how to destroy them. Above Nexus Prime, small human ships hung in space like tiny insects next to the giant alien warships. Earth's fleet was embarrassingly small compared to the ancient species' mighty armadas. The human vessels looked like toys next to the kilometer-long dreadnoughts of the Council races. Admiral, came the voice of Commander Li Jun over the radio from his ship, the alien fleets are moving into their traditional attack patterns. Should we follow their lead? Kim Soo thought for a moment. Every military academy in human space taught students to study and copy the battle tactics of the ancient species. Their methods had worked for hundreds of thousands of years. But those same methods had been failing against this new enemy. No, Kim Soo said firmly. All human ships ignore the formation protocols. Li Jun, take your squadron and fly through that asteroid field over there. Park Hai, start moving your ships in random patterns. Don't let the enemy figure out what we're going to do next. Sir? Park Hai's voice sounded confused over the radio. That goes against everything we learned in training. I know, Kim Soo replied. But training won't help us against an enemy that learns faster than we can think. Just trust me. The battle began with flashes of light that lit up the darkness of space. The ancient species' weapons were incredible to watch, beams of pure energy and projectiles that moved faster than lightning. But the dark ships seemed to absorb the attacks like sponges soaking up water. Within minutes, Kim Soo could see that the enemy was doing exactly what it had done in every previous battle. The dark ships studied how each ancient species fought, then began moving in ways that perfectly countered their attacks. The beautiful, precise formations of the Council races became death traps. The Voron crystal ships are singing, Han Na reported, her equipment translating the musical communication into words. They're crying out in despair as their formations fall apart. But something different was happening with the human ships. Li Jun's squadron was weaving through the asteroid field in patterns that made no sense at all. Sometimes they flew straight, sometimes they spun in circles, sometimes they stopped completely for no reason. Park Hai's group was even more chaotic. Her ships moved like drunken dancers, changing direction every few seconds without any apparent plan. The enemy's dark vessels tried to follow them, but kept guessing wrong about where the humans would go next. It's working. Li Jun shouted over the radio. The enemy ships keep moving to intercept us, but we're never where they think we'll be. Lieutenant Commander Jiang Wu, commanding the smallest human ship in the fleet, did something that no alien species had ever attempted. Instead of trying to destroy the enemy ships from a distance, he flew his tiny vessel directly at one of the dark ships and somehow managed to dock with it. Wu, what are you doing? Kim Soo demanded. Something crazy, sir. Wu replied. My team is boarding their ship. We're using those old zero-gravity combat techniques from the asteroid mining wars. Kim Soo held his breath as he imagined Wu and his small team floating through the corridors of an enemy vessel, armed with nothing but improvised explosives and the kind of desperate courage that only humans seem to possess. "We're inside," Wu reported. "This ship is trying to analyze our tactics, but we're not following any tactics at all. We're just making things up as we go along." Around them, the ancient fleets continued to suffer terrible losses. Their predictable movements and traditional strategies were no match for an enemy that could learn and adapt in real time. But the small human fleet continued to dance through the battle like insects that were too quick and too random to swat. "Admiral," Park Hai called out, "I think we're actually confusing them. The enemy ships are starting to make mistakes." For the first time since the battle began, Kim Soo allowed himself to hope. Maybe being small, young, and unpredictable was exactly what the galaxy needed. The silence in the council chambers was so complete that Kim Soo could hear his own heartbeat. Around him, thousands of beings from the 12 ancient species sat motionless, staring at the holographic displays that showed the aftermath of the battle. The numbers were terrible to look at. The Keth had lost 60% of their fleet. The mighty Voron crystal ships, some of them older than human civilization, floated in space as broken fragments. The Nethri energy beings had seen half of their number simply fade away, their magnetic fields disrupted beyond repair. But in one corner of the display, a small cluster of green dots still moved actively through space. The human fleet, though tiny compared to what had been lost, remained almost completely intact. Commander Osu stood quietly near the human delegation, her hands folded behind her back. She was Earth's best diplomat, a woman who had spent 20 years learning to communicate with alien species. But even she seemed overwhelmed by what had just happened. One of the Nethri spokesmen, a swirling cloud of blue and silver gas, slowly formed itself into something that almost looked like a face. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind through empty caves. "For 200,000 years, the Nethri said, we have guided this galaxy through wisdom earned across eons. We have seen stars born and die. We have watched entire solar systems form from cosmic dust." The gas being paused, and Kim Soo could see emotions flickering through its cloudy form like lightning in storm clouds. "Yet today," the Nethri continued, "we have learned that wisdom without the ability to change becomes nothing more than stubborn tradition." A Keth elder, so old that its telepathic voice felt like ancient whispers, sent its thoughts to every mind in the chamber. "We have become prisoners of our own success. For countless generations our methods worked perfectly. No enemy could challenge us. No problem could not be solved with our proven techniques." Kim Soo looked around the chamber and saw something he had never expected to see. These beings, who had ruled the galaxy since before Earth's sun was born, looked defeated. Not just in battle but in spirit. Captain Yu Min leaned over to whisper in Kim Soo's ear. "They're questioning everything they've believed about themselves." A massive Voron crystal being, its body still singing with harmonic vibrations from the battle, projected words into the air using patterns of colored light. Han Na's translation equipment turned the lights into speech. "We have observed the human tactics," the Voron said. "They do not follow established patterns. Where we see the need for order and predictability, they embrace uncertainty and constant change." Commander Osu stepped forward slowly. Kim Soo could see that she was nervous, but her voice remained steady and calm. "Honored members of the council," she began, "we do not stand before you claiming to be wiser or stronger than you are." Her words were translated into dozens of different languages and forms of communication. The chamber filled with clicking sounds, musical tones, flashing lights, and swirling patterns of scent. "Humanity has learned survival through constant adaptation," Osu continued. "When we left Earth we were weak and small. We had no great weapons, no ancient knowledge, no powerful friends. All we had was the ability to learn from our mistakes and try new approaches." A Ferox representative, looking like a metallic tree with branches that moved like arms, flashed a pattern of red and gold lights. "The humans succeeded where we failed because they were not limited by the weight of tradition." Kim Soo watched as the ancient beings began to discuss something that had never been discussed in the history of the galaxy. For the first time in 200,000 years, the council was questioning its own leadership. The debate went on for hours. Some species argued that the battle had been an unusual situation, that the old ways would work again once they had time to study this new enemy. But others pointed out that the galaxy was changing, that new threats would require new approaches. "The enemy adapted to our methods in minutes," said a Nethri elder. "But they could not adapt to chaos and unpredictability." The Keth elder's mental voice grew stronger. "The humans think in ways we have forgotten how to think. Where we see established patterns that must be followed, they see opportunities to create something new. Where we see chaos that must be controlled, they create order through constant adaptation. Finally, the moment came that no one in the chamber had ever imagined possible. The 12 ancient species were asked to vote on a question that challenged the foundation of galactic government. Should the council dissolve itself and transfer leadership to a younger species? Kim Soo held his breath as the voting began. Each species had one vote, and the decision had to be made by a simple majority. 7 votes would be enough to change the galaxy forever. The Nethri voted yes. The Keth voted yes. The Vorin voted yes. One by one, species that had never questioned their right to rule began to admit that perhaps it was time for someone else to try. But not everyone agreed. 5 of the 12 species voted to maintain the old system. They argued that temporary failure did not mean permanent change was necessary. When the final vote was counted, the result was 7 in favor of change, 5 against. Commander Osu looked pale as she realized what had just happened. In a single vote, humanity had gone from being a minor colonial power to being offered leadership of the entire galaxy. The age of human rule was about to begin. 3 months had passed since the vote that changed everything. Admiral Kim Soo stood on the bridge of the Mobile Command Center, a new type of space station that could move from system to system as needed. Unlike the ancient council's fixed meeting places, this command center went wherever the fighting was heaviest. Through the wide windows, Kim Soo could see something that would have been impossible just a few months ago. Human ships flew in formation with Keth vessels, their hulls gleaming silver in the starlight. Vorin crystal ships moved alongside Nethri energy clouds, creating a rainbow of colors against the black of space. Admiral, Captain Anso called out from her communication station. Squadron 7 is reporting successful completion of their patrol. The mixed crews are working better than we ever hoped. Kim Soo smiled as he watched Anso's own ship appear on the main screen. Her vessel was a marvel of cooperation, a human-built hull equipped with Vorin crystal computers and powered by Nethri energy systems. The crew included beings from 6 different species, all working together under human command. The Keth telepaths on my ship are amazing, Anso continued her report. They can read the thoughts of our human pilots and instantly share tactical information with the whole squadron. We know what each other is thinking before we even speak. Communications Officer Kong Du looked up from his console with excitement in his eyes. Sir, I'm getting reports from the Vorin crystal ships. They're using their massive computing power to analyze our chaotic battle tactics and make them even more unpredictable. Kim Soo walked over to the tactical display, a 3-dimensional map that showed the current state of the war. Green dots represented the new combined fleets, while red dots showed where the dark space invaders were still active. For the first time since the war began, there were more green dots than red ones. How are the crystal computers helping with our tactics? Kim Soo asked. Kong Du pulled up a complex diagram on his screen. The Vorin ships can calculate thousands of possible battle scenarios in seconds. But instead of using that power to create rigid battle plans like the old council did, they're using it to generate random patterns that look like chaos but actually have hidden order. Captain Yu Min approached from the science station, her tablet full of data about their new allies. It's incredible, Admiral. We're learning so much from working with these ancient species. The Ferox taught us how to communicate using light patterns, which makes our signals much harder for the enemy to intercept. And the Nethri energy beings showed us how to power our weapons using magnetic fields instead of traditional fuel, added Specialist Han Na. Our ships can now fight 3 times longer before needing to resupply. Kim Soo nodded, but his attention was caught by a flashing alert on the main tactical display. What's that warning signal? Kong Du checked his instruments quickly. Sir, it's good news. 3 separate sectors are reporting that the dark space invaders are pulling back. Our scouts say the enemy ships are retreating deeper into the void. The bridge fell silent as everyone processed this information. For over a year, the dark space invaders had been advancing steadily, conquering system after system. This was the first time anyone had seen them retreat. Why are they pulling back? Kim Soo asked. Han Na pulled up recordings from recent battles on her screen. Look at this, Admiral. In every recent engagement, the enemy ships seem confused. They start to adapt to our tactics, but then we change everything before they can complete their analysis. The recordings showed dark space ships trying to counter human strategies, only to find themselves facing Keth telepathic coordination they couldn't predict. When they adapted to the telepaths, suddenly they were dealing with Vorin computational power generating new chaos patterns faster than they could process. Their adaptive systems can't keep up, Yu Min explained. They were designed to fight one species at a time, learning that species patterns and developing counters. But we're not one species anymore. We're 12 species working together in ways that even we don't fully understand sometimes. Kim Soo walked back to the main window and looked out at the mixed fleets. A human destroyer was flying next to a Keth mineship, their crews sharing thoughts and strategies in real time. Beyond them, a Voron crystal vessel was coordinating with a Nethri energy cloud to power weapons that no single species could have created alone. Sir, Kong Du called out, I'm receiving a message from the frontier sectors. The colonists want to know if it's safe to start rebuilding the worlds that were abandoned during the invasion. For the first time in months, Kim Soo felt truly hopeful. Tell them yes, he said. Tell them that the galaxy is no longer divided into old species and young species, or powerful civilizations and weak colonies. We're all one people now. Captain Anso's voice came over the communication system from her ship. Admiral, my mixed crew has a question. Now that we're fighting as one united force, what should we call ourselves? We can't keep saying the human-led alliance, when everyone is contributing equally. Kim Soo thought for a moment, looking out at the stars where ships from 12 different worlds flew together as one fleet. Call us what we are, he said finally. The Galaxy United. Outside, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if the universe itself approved of what they had accomplished together.